Good evening, Mark.
Evening, Ollie. Welcome to another episode of Learn Live UAE. And I am really excited about the show this evening. Really excited. There's been a bit of a buzz on social media as well. People keen to learn from our guests and with our guests as well. Welcome to all of you who've joined us this evening as well. Please do say hello in the chat. It's always nice to know that we've got real people in and not some AI bots or anything like that. So please do say hello. And let us know who you are, where you work, and what you're after. If you've got any questions for our guests this evening on the show, please do drop them into the live chat as well, whether you are on Periscope via Twitter or whether you're watching via our YouTube channel, youtube.com/LearnLiveUAE. And so we're really keen to hear from you about your experiences, whether they match up with those of our guests. Obviously, I work in this sort of area as well, so I've got lots of experience of things I've done, plus schools I'm currently working with. Ollie leads on this in his school as well, so lots of opportunities for some pretty well-rounded, experienced educators to share these sort of things across the show this evening. But I'm talking around the houses and all the rest of it here because we haven't actually said what the show's about tonight, have we, Ollie? What's the show about this evening?
Before we talk about what the show's about, let's just give a little shout out to two schools in the region. One of them being my own, the British International School of Abu Dhabi, who won an award for student pathways in the recent International School Awards, hosted by ISC Research. And then our two guests from Deira International School picked up the trophy, as it were. They won an award for digital technology at the same award show. And our two guests are going to talk to us about how they created an award-winning digital strategy. It's something that's obviously pivotal in this day and age, and is going to be ever more mindful on teachers and leaders' minds as we move forward to 2021, 2022, certainly as we're enveloped in this kind of hybrid approach, Mark. So it's not about us. Let's bring the guests in. Shall we introduce our two guests?
Absolutely. Before you do that, though, Wally, I was going to do a shout out to some of our audience this evening. We've got people saying hello, as I asked. So I do want to recognise that they do exist. A big shout out to Liz Jones, British School in the Netherlands, and someone I've worked with before and connected with many times on social media. Welcome, Liz. I hope you are keeping well. And we've got Mataza from Dubai joining us. And
I believe it was your birthday yesterday as well, Mark. I think I'm right in thinking that.
Happy belated birthday, Mataza. I hope you had a great day. And a friend of both of ours, I'm guessing this is the same Charles Wood. I mean, I don't think Charles Wood is a particularly unusual name, but given that what we're covering on the show and you and I being involved in it, I'm pretty sure that's Charles from Century. So welcome, Charles. You're very welcome on the show here this evening. And someone, I'm not quite sure who this person is actually, Ollie. Have you come across this person?
I think she might be involved in educational technology fairly heavily and work in an award-winning school, Mark, maybe?
Maybe. Actually, is it this person here?
Here it is. It's Linda. Hi, Linda.
Hello.
Hi, Linda. Welcome. And Paul Gardner, both from Deira International School. Welcome to the show, both of you. I hope you're having a great day. How are things going for you at the school at the moment, Linda?
Very well. We're just in the middle of launching our Safer Internet Day events, which is all very exciting, and getting lots of the students involved in that. And we're about to do our STEAM events as well. So it's all go for us, like a virtual and physical school. So it's very good.
Fantastic stuff. And how's your day been at school today, Paul?
Good, yeah, good day today. So it's been exciting, kind of watching what's been going on, what Linda's been mentioning there. But yeah, another day. In the pandemic, it always provides interest at some point. So yeah, it's been good day.
Oh, brilliant stuff. We're really pleased to hear it. Before we dive into the questions, just to give our audience a bit of a feel for who you are, what you do, where you come from, all those sorts of things. Seeing as you've got the floor at the moment, Paul, could you just share a little bit about your sort of career to date and to where you are now at Deira? And then I'll ask the same question to you afterwards, Linda, if that's okay.
You make a great Cilla Black, Mark. Yeah, so I'm from a place called Ormskirk in Lancashire. I taught English as a foreign language in Spain for a couple of years at university, postgraduate students. Fell in love with teaching, joined as a history teacher, worked in Prince William School in Arundel, and then I left to join the international scene in Spain, where I became head of sixth form, was head of sixth form at King's College in Spain for 3 years, well, 1 year as head of Key Stage 4, 2 years head of sixth form, before moving to Brighton College in the UAE, where I spent 3 wonderful years, which I loved every minute, as assistant head responsible for data, inform and learning, amongst other things. I was a digital lead for the prep school, working under Duncan Silcock, which was really formative for myself. He's a great guy and very, very knowledgeable in this area. And then I moved to Dubai a couple of years ago, where I've been working with Linda at Deira International School, where I'm deputy head for all things academic and curriculum, but with a particular interest, I would say, not an only focus, but a particular interest in digital learning strategy and moving teaching and learning forward through it.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Paul. Lovely to hear you give Duncan Silcock a shout as well there. Great guy. I've connected and worked with him many times over the years as well. So lovely to hear you sort of recognise and give him a bit of a shout out too. Thank you so much, Paul. Linda, what about your sort of career to date? How have you ended up at Deira?
Well, I started off in London when I did my NQT, and I really enjoyed like being in an A-level school. But after 2 years of being in London as metropolitan and beautiful as the city is, I decided to kind of get some more courage and move abroad, and that's where I kind of went into Qatar. Got interested in the IB curriculum and how you kind of teach like science through that. It's very different slant to A-level. I then went to Kuwait, and that school gave me an A-level school. Okay, so like it was back to A-level, but that was my first kind of digitally minded school, and it was probably one of the first Google schools of in Kuwait at that time, and that's kind of where I started learning about gosh, what are they called? Yeah, so I met a guy called Paul Crosley and his friend, and that's where, you know, when I came to Dubai, we linked up again. But by that time, I was in a school that heavily used Microsoft. Got even more interested in it, and ended up writing or helping to write and implement a digital strategy in Deira International School, which transformed the learning environment of our school to elevate teaching and learning. So that's me.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much indeed, Linda. Ollie, over to you for the first sort of digging deeper question, if that's okay, please.
Sure, of course. Paul, if we can start with yourself, please. Could you just describe the journey that Deira has been on in the last 2 years, please?
Yeah, sure. As a historian, we kind of focus on, when we look at change, we look at kind of the nature, the extent and the pace of change, all three of which for Deira in the last 2 years has been pretty extreme in many ways, really. When I joined the school, and that was about just under 2 years ago now, there was very, very little in terms of digital strategy. There was very little in terms of actual hardware that was usable for the teachers. It was a good school. There was a reputation of you know, outstanding teaching and outstanding learning taking place, but there was no real. There was nothing there. We were working from hardware that was 10 years old. The students didn't have devices. It seemed very much like a school probably more like 10 years ago than 2 years ago. Now, within the last 18 months or so, Linda and I have led on introducing devices for students and staff as well, and just building an ecosystem that is suitable to the community that we are, you know, responsible to, but also is appropriate for that community. It's like Linda said before, you know, coming from a different school. I was coming from Apple school before, and we were very iPad heavy. But when I came to the school, Linda introduced me to Microsoft, you know, on a more deeper level, and it met the needs of our school much better, basically. So we are kind of where we are now as a kind of, I think we're doing, you know, we're very much, it's at the forefront of everything we do, really. It has been a huge journey for us, but it's very much been a teaching and learning journey, as opposed to a digital one. It obviously has had its kind of roots in digital, but we've been able to kind of do a lot of things through teaching and, you know, to improve the learning as a result of the digital journey we've been on. So yeah, it's been quite the 2 years really.
That's really interesting. Sort of journey that you've been on. Sorry, Mark, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. You mentioned there a few times, Paul, identifying need. I just wanted to sort of pull on that strand a little bit more. If either of you could expand on that, how did you go about identifying the need and then actioning it?
I think I'll just pop in one thing because I know Linda will want to come in on this too. For a key thing for us was confidence and competence of staff. You know, where they felt that they were, you know, because we were all coming from very different backgrounds, different schools, different ecosystems. So one thing we needed to get a handle on very quickly is where staff felt comfortable with Apple or with Microsoft or with particular devices, with particular apps, and you know, that kind of thing. That was something we wanted to audit very quickly. So we weren't kind of cold calling people. We had kind of ready-made ambassadors for particular things. But I know Linda did a lot of work on this, so I'll pass the baton over.
So we started by doing we had a change transformation program, and it was through 5 years and in more detail with, like, you know, which like for each year, like, you know, what were we going to do, and we used something called the ADCAR. And if you see my blog or anything like that, or like, you know, you were talking to me last year, I would have been absolutely banging on about this, but it really, really does work the thing is, like, it's so simple, it can be done for every school, so it can be unique to every environment. And what it is that it's change transformation and making sure that all your stakeholders know what's about to happen, because they know what's about to happen because they need it. And so like the A of the ADCAR is awareness, then you have the D for desire, the K for knowledge, the A for ability, and then the R for reinforcement. Okay, so like when we very, very first started, we needed to create like the awareness that change, like a big change, like throughout the 5 years was going to happen. And as Paul was saying, like, it needed to be completely clear that was going to be, like, you know, for the end of making you a better teacher, making the learners better learners, you know, making our school like elevated. But it wasn't just that, it was also, like, you know, making like our environment more transparent to parents, like making sure that the workflow was better for the teachers, making sure that, like, you know, and like citizenship was kind of like more there as well. So there were many strands to this. Like, education technology is complex and complicated because it keeps changing all the time. So that's why it's really important to have like clear kind of like, by the end of this year, this is what we want to achieve, and have that as a simple goal that you can really drive down on. As what Paul was saying, the awareness, with the awareness came the audit, the digital audit, which we repeat every year now. With a desire to change comes the result of the audit, and kind of like from this, we've seen that you're strong, or the school is strong, or this person is strong in this particular thing. But from this, we can see that you guys need to work, we need to work on kind of like communication, for instance. So that's what we're going to work on next year. And then with that then comes your training and your knowledge section. And then like the ability of the teachers, and will come throughout the year or throughout the month or throughout kind of like depending on like your time frame for it. And then reinforcement. The first time we did it, actually I called it reflection by accident. Okay, but like the reinforcement then comes with like afterwards, when you're kind of like, did we actually get that impact? How can we measure that impact? And have we done a good enough job? If not, and this is the great thing about it, you can step back, because it doesn't have to, ADCAR doesn't have to be done sequentially. Like if you at any point realize that through reinforcement you have to go back and there's a gap, you go back to that, or you just kind of loop around and you just kind of keep doing that until you get the impact that you want. So yeah, that's kind of how we started it, but more importantly, that's how we're going to carry on doing it as well. So that's kind of our big picture. Afterwards, obviously, you need action plans and stuff, which is probably where Paul's going to jump in now.
That's really interesting, Linda. Thank you. It's really important in my experience as well to see these things as an iterative process. You're not going to get everything right first time, and you know, just taking Moore's law into consideration just for a moment. the pace of change in technology, whether it's hardware, software, infrastructure, it changes so quickly. Actually having a consistent framework that everyone knows and is aware of and you can hang things off of as part of that process, that makes it easier as you move forwards to have that consistent framework. Yeah. It's nice actually that Mataz has asked a question, which obviously I can think I've got a good answer for it, but I'm going to ask yourself and Paul, Linda, for your input. Mataz asks, does the ecosystem, i.e. Apple, Microsoft or Google, actually affect or impact on the design of your digital strategy? What do you think, Linda?
That's a really great question, actually, because, as I said before, I came from a Google background. I came into the school, and when I came in, like just before Paul was there, we were a school that was leaning towards Apple. We had Microsoft Foundation. Essentially, the reason why we needed digital strategy was because it was incoherent. Like there wasn't a cohesiveness. I think the digital platform is a means to the. Am I getting this right around? The digital platform is a means to the end. So like the end point is like elevation of teaching and learning. That can be done on whatever digital platform. Like there could be a new one next week. Like some people don't use Microsoft, Apple, or Google. They use things like Firefly or Edmodo, or like the kind of like the more kind of freer apps. And that's fine. Like as long as it goes to the end of teaching and learning, it works for your ecosystem. It works for parents. They can access it. It works for the students. They feel safe and they're ready to learn on it. Like I think that would be my answer.
I agree with you on that as well. I mean, I often share about that's a Bananarama principle, and it ain't so much what you do, it's the way that you do it that's important. And so, as you've alluded to, it could be Linda Web that comes out, or PaulSoft is the latest learning platform, or whatever it is. You talked about some of the features of platforms which make them helpful in terms of choosing them, so they've got the features and functionality that you want to allow your stakeholders, be it parents, teachers, trustees, whoever, to have access to. But your strategy shouldn't be incumbent upon each of those different ecosystems, because again it goes back to that Bananarama principle. Just wonder, Paul, what your thoughts were. Did your thoughts all just echo what Linda and I have said on that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just like to be even clearer, that I think the question is, does the ecosystem affect the digital strategy? As simple as no, it doesn't. It can be anything. It's not. I would really encourage anyone who is kind of starting the journey of looking at digital strategy, not to look too closely at kind of the hardware or the software or anything like that. Focus on, like Linda said, focus on the improvement of teaching and learning. How do you do that? How do you achieve that goal? And then looking for things that will help you with that. I think the last year has elevated, Apple and Microsoft, the focus that they have on improving their environments, and they're all much of a muchness, really. When you look at Google Classroom, when you look at Teams, and the like, there are far more things that are similar than there are different. So I would say, come back to it's interesting pivot from Moore's law to Bananarama, but I'd actually like the Bananarama reference. It is the way that you do it, and it's Linda and I, if you picked us up and placed us in a school down the road, we would do it completely differently, because that's how it works. And I think that that's a broader leadership principle. You don't go from one school with a great pastoral system and just pick it up and place it in a different school or co-curricular program. Because you've got to read your community, So no, in short.
Some great advice there. Thank you very much, Paul. Ollie, are you okay with the next question?
Yeah, let's go for it. We'll go on, Linda.
Sorry, there's just one little tiny point that I want to make, like just as a little asterisk. I'm sorry, because there's many nuances to educational technology, and I realise that a lot of our audience are teachers, essentially, and you use it day in, day out as a daily teacher. But there is also the world of admin and support, and the heads of department needing to use it for communication, and your digital team, like your IT team needing to keep everyone safe and so on. And that is a huge part of your digital ecosystem. So I'm just going to say this now. We chose what we chose because it worked for everyone. Now, just because we chose what we did doesn't mean, you know, what Paul said, it doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone, like in the background as well as the forefront of teaching, but you have to choose something that is that sings on the same hymn sheet kind of thing. So for instance, like, you know, a really good example of this is we are a Microsoft school. However, like one of the big changes that we had, like on the back of like teaching and learning and stuff, was we now use iSounds, because the thing that we used previously couldn't talk to Microsoft and Teams and Office 365 at all, and it was a nightmare trying to, like, you know, make everything. So that's it. Sorry, Charlie.
No, you're right. It's really important that, because, you know, your digital strategy does touch, you know, pretty much every facet of your school community. This feels like quite a good time to bring this in. I hope this is the right page that you can see coming through. But you know, written by Mark. I didn't know if he was going to share this or not, but I'll share it anyway. Written by Mark and Al Kingsley. You know, if you're starting out, this is a great resource. If you go to schooldigitalstrategy.com, you can access version 1 and version 2 of their digital strategy guide, which is a great point, and lots of salient questions in there to ask about your school, your context, to make sure that you do get it right for them. So please do check that out. I'll dive into the next question, Mark, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
Digital strategy for EYFS then is markedly different to what it looks like in primary, which again is different to what it looks like in secondary. How did you manage that divide between the different phases and stages of your school with the community?
I mean, really, again, it comes down to learning and teaching. That fundamentally, the things you do with a year 1 pupil are the same that you do with a postgraduate students. You know, you teach, you know, and you give opportunities for learning, and you feedback, and you have as many feedback cycles as humanly possible, because that's where the learning really takes place. You know, and I think, you know, the best way to look at this is to look at the digital systems, the ecosystem, you know, the programs that you can use to facilitate to facilitate really positive feedback loops, timely intervention for pupils, so that feedback is happening with regularity, with as much quality as possible, and also, you know, modeling, you know, what good looks like. Now, whether you are using Tapestry, FS, whether you're using Seesaw or Shobi Up the School or Microsoft Teams, it's basically the same thing. You know, we at Brighton, we used Shobi, and we used it for placing, you know, voice notes at very specific points in a pupil's work. I mean, you were talking like, you know, on a nose of a pencil, you would very specifically place that feedback as to where, you know, the pupil would access it. Now that really works for a year 9 students, whereas for a year 13 student, it might be at the end of a paragraph, and it's a bit more, you know, continuous prose and a more lengthy conversation. But my son's in year 2, and he gets his feedback on Seesaw, and it's great. It's completely different, the interaction with it, the methodology, or not the methodology, but the interaction with the method, but it is in essence the same. So, you know, does it differ? The medium absolutely differs. So good luck if you're going to use Microsoft Teams with you know, EYFS, but ultimately the actual outcomes and the way in which you achieve those outcomes and what you're aiming for is you know, I'm yet to be convinced that it's not exactly the same. You know, good quality feedback. Well, I've tickled Linda there, so I'm intrigued.
No, I got massively distracted. I'm so sorry, but like I do completely. I was listening to you, I promise. I do completely agree with what you were saying. It is like, you know, and the thing that we do well in our school is a common thread of learning, the common thread of digital skills, whether it be digital organisation, whether it be like, you know, timely intervention and feedback and getting the children used to it. Whether it be like use of independent learning platforms like Sentry, hi Giles, but also, you know, like using Sentry, but using it with high impact. Like it's not just there as a bolt-on, but the children know that they are expected to use it for independent learning. So by the time they get to IB and they're using other things like Cognitive, they're away with it, and they fly with it. So yes, but you're right though. I mean, like the way that you talk to an EYFS student is so different from how you talk to an IB student, and that's why the platform needs to be different, and that's why there are so many platforms in EdTech, because there are many different schools and individuals that need to be catered for.
Can I just jump on that very quickly to make a little plug for Century, because I know that Charles is watching, and I think we are approaching our millionth question answered sometime soon, hopefully in February. And the work the support we've had from Century Tech has been absolutely phenomenal in kind of been doing what we've been doing. And yeah, so a little plug for Century on that. I hope you don't mind.
No, not at all. I mean, I'm a big fan myself as well, and I know Ollie is as well. I mean, Ollie won his Guess Award. Doing a shout out for Ollie now. He won his Guess Award back last year for his implementation of Century at VisAd as well. So I think we're definitely all singing from the same hymn sheet and all those sorts of things this afternoon. But we're talking a lot about technology. I want to pose a question to both of you because it isn't. And you've alluded to it a little bit, Paul, in some of the things you've said, as have you, Linda. And it is not so much about the technology. So that I'm going to sort of give you a little phrase. Technology implementation is a change management process. To what extent do you agree with that statement? Because it's not about the technology. It's a change management process. Who'd like to have a good answer in that question, Paul or Linda?
Can I be a complete geek? Can I even put my hand up?
Go.
So it's all about like changing. It's about kind of the culture for growth in a school, and like a school can quickly established school, like a school that's like maybe like 10, 15 years old. I'm saying this now relatively because like, you know, in international school years, that's quite established, you know, but whereas if you go into like, you know, the UK, that's obviously going to be like, you know, a school that's 100 years old, but you kind of get the point. Like, you know, schools that are more established tend to have environments that are like, we've always done it this way kind of thing, and therefore it's not just the technology that becomes stagnated, it's like the whole growth mindset, and you become kind of stuck in a rut. And technology for us and for, I'm hoping, other schools as well, is a way of like, you know, saying, this is new for everyone. You know, this is something that, you know, you can use for every, you know, for every, like, whether you're a PGC student or a 20-year in teacher, that can elevate your teaching and learning. And then, like, you know, by having that and by promoting that discussion on a common thing, like, you know, you can then build on that discussion and say, like, well, how can we make our feedback more effective? And then it suddenly becomes like not talking about the platform, you're then talking back about teaching and learning, and like, how can you make yourself a better teacher? And it's kind of done almost in a way that's less offensive to people, especially if, like, you know, you're talking to a 20-year-old like a 20-year in teacher, and you're like maybe a 3-year in teacher, but you've got this like amazing idea about Nearpod. You don't want to be saying, or you don't want to kind of come across as a person that says, like, to this 20-year in teacher, like, oh, actually, like, I think you're doing it wrong. But you can say, you know, I don't think anyone, by the way, is doing anything wrong. But, like, you know, maybe this way you can improve because you're using something from Nearpod. And then that would kind of spark that want to learn again about teaching. I don't know, I really strongly believe that that's something that's quite special about technology.
Thank you very much. There's lots there to agree with. What are your thoughts alongside that, Paul, please?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a quote I wrote down that when Linda was chatting out, I didn't want to not mention. I'll come to it in just a second. I think the key thing is to bring people with you here. You can have the best systems in the world, but if you don't bring people with you, then it's not going to work. The quote I wrote down, it's a quote from someone, see if you know who it's from, but a leader without followers is basically someone going for a walk. You know, and that's from our director there. So Linda will recognise that. But what's it called? You know, it is true. You know, when you make when you make any change in schools, and this isn't isolated to technology, if people don't come with you, then it isn't going to work. Again, come back to Moore's law before, you know, catching up with that is impossible. We'll never reach where we are using the full potential of the technology available right now. If technology paused today, we would never reach its full potential of the way we use it. So, you know, it doesn't matter what system you're using. The most important thing is that you have buy-in, and the best way to have buy-in is engagement with the process, so it's owned by the stakeholders that are actually using it. It's interesting, you know, our parents this time, what must have been, Linda, about 16, 17 months ago, I remember we had kind of those parents who wanted to keep the VLE. You know, I think it was Moodle. It was an old. I remember doing a unit on it on a PGCE.
It was homegrown, Paul.
Homegrown. even better, and trying to explain to parents. And this is something that I think we could have done better, in our journey. I think that we did an awful lot of work, but because we were moving so quickly, I think we could have done even more. I think you can't overdo change management and the process around that, but they weren't convinced that this thing called Teams was going to be any better at all, and we found some opposition to what we were trying to do as a result of that. And actually, spending that time getting those key players on board was crucial in us actually achieving what we wanted to achieve. And we still haven't done that, by the way. It's great to get. I know we've chatted about this before, Mark. It's great to get recognition. It's wonderful. It's lovely to have a pat on the back, but we're not there yet. We're not there by any stretch of the imagination. This is the start of a journey, and not the end of a journey. So yeah, there's plenty more change to come, but also just a lot of refining, a lot of making what we're doing better, and not overcomplicating it. Taking the simple ideas, taking the simple things that are higher impact, and doing them better, as opposed to introducing more things. But yeah. Definitely bringing people with you.
Yeah, completely agree. Ollie, did you want to jump into that question we talked about?
Yeah, just Paul, you've led really nicely into that. Into our next question about all of the teachers in your community. How did you go about incentivizing staff to engage in your new strategy across the school?
I think they were a part of it. I think that was a big thing. It's not. I would be very reluctant to say it was mine or Linda's strategy. It was a school strategy that was kind of built by the school. And certainly we were the ones who were, Linda more so. Credit where credit's due. But we were the ones who were facilitating that process and bringing it all together. But ultimately, it was reflective of our staff. And again, there are so many trends that run through education and leadership that are exactly the same relevant to tech. When it is by the staff and it's for the staff, then it's always better received. I read somewhere in a book that you need 17% of the staff room with you when you want to incorporate a new idea. Well, of course, if you've got 17% of the staff who've contributed to making it, well, then you're already there. Well, I know that Linda will probably want to add a little bit to kind of that part of this journey, I'm sure.
I think it's really evolved as the digital strategy has evolved. So this is bearing in mind that when we first started, there wasn't anything, and there was kind of no direction, and that was really reflected in our staff, in that they wanted change. There was the awareness there was a desire there, but they didn't know how to implement that change. Okay, so we're halfway there, kind of. Okay, so what we did before we even implemented Teams, because what we did was we implemented Teams as software, but we also gave the Surface Pros at the same time. Okay, so we made sure that there was a focus group. So we worked really closely with Microsoft. Now this was so we worked really closely with outside organizations, to kind of bring model devices in. And to kind of the people that I spoke to. So I very quickly kind of found that whilst I was talking about change coming in, a lot of people were scared, okay, because it was new. People don't really like change that much at first, but there were some people that were just I can see why we need this. I want to help. Okay, so we gave those few select people, we made them feel really special by giving them these trial Surface Pro and Surface Go's. I needed to know whether a Surface Pro was going to be of any more impact than a Surface Go. It turned out that it was. Okay, so that's why Paul pushed really, really hard for these Surface Pros. Well, that's essentially once we had those people in and we gave them these new devices, we could then kind of invite people back in and essentially train those people, and they became our very first digital architects. The people in specialist departments spread across the school. So we made sure we got art, DT, humanities, English. The ones that we got some of them PE in. We made sure that it was even across the school, and it wasn't ignoring anyone. And then those are the people that essentially they stood up with me and introduced Teams to the whole school. After a couple of times doing that, they very quickly realized that, like, yeah, okay, like, you know, me and Paul were there as like digital specialists kind of thing, but then there were also like pockets of people that were training other people on how to work, and it wouldn't have worked in an environment as big as ours, as dynamic as ours, if there weren't those people. Now those digital architects have grown from 6 to 20, okay, and those are the teachers that really help, like, you know, the things that we're doing like this year, which is a lot more kind of tailored, kind of like help, oh gosh, what are they called, help videos, sorry, and kind of like top tips, and like, you know, if I need to go in and do like a coaching observation or something, like I look at these people first, because it's just like, these are the people that I can guarantee I'm coming out of their lesson, and it's just like, wow, they've used, like, I know, kind of feedback and audio, like audio or OneNote really, really well, kind of thing. I can talk about this, I can champion them, and yeah, they've grown because of it. Like, I think another thing that, like, you know, we do quite well is praising the teachers. So we're really pushing our Microsoft education experts this year, because that's something that they can put on their CVs for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, I'll stop.
No, I love both of your responses there, and it reminds me of a quote, and I'm just going to overlay it here now. And the reason why I sort of remember this quote, I read it on the front cover of a former colleague of mine's book, Zoe Elder. She wrote a book called Full On Learning. And I think what you're explaining here, both of you, by involving your key stakeholders, you know, in what it is that you're trying to do, you bring people on that journey with you. And this applies to children, to colleagues in the office as back office and admin and support staff, or whether it's the teachers you're working with, or parents even, you know, but bringing people along that journey with you and being really open about what it is you're trying to achieve, I think is absolutely key. Something that was really helpful to us when I was doing the iPad rollout back in 2011. It was about sharing with the parents that, you know, we don't have all of the answers right now about absolutely everything, but this is the journey we're going on. This is where we're going. We're not going to always get it completely right, but you're involved in that journey with us. So if there are things that aren't working, let us know so we can change it and tweak it. And again, it's not about them necessarily, others sort of necessarily leading on these things, but by having those conversations, being open like you have been, and engaging your key stakeholders in that journey, it's clear how helpful that's been. But we've had and I think, I don't know if I'm stepping on Ollie's toes here or not. I'm playing a game of ping pong with the questions, so I'm going to jump through this one now. And a big shout out as well to Danny Messmar, who's joining us from Guess, and having a great start to the year. Thank you very much, Danny. Welcome to Sabe, who's joining us. He's a little bit late, but I thought he said he was a little bit latte for a second. I thought, oh, he's been on to coffee, but is that just a little late? But we had a question from Neil Statham, Heartland International. Linda, what do you know now that you wish you did when you started this journey? What have you learned through this journey that you wish you'd known when you started it? Putting you on the spot there, Neil. Well, putting Linda on the spot for you, Neil. Sorry.
And it's going to sound so cliched, because I mean, like, I've built relationships so much over Twitter, but like the power of reaching out over Twitter in a meaningful way. So like, I wish, like, when I first started like using Twitter, I used it in a way that involved other people. So instead of like just tweeting out and saying like, oh, this is what we've done, like using it to kind of promote discussion and promote collaboration. That's been so powerful for us this year, and I think that kind of I've learned that, like, personally, I guess, like, and that then makes a direct impact in like the way that we can do things like projects and stuff in our school, and things like staff training. So like the first time I kind of reached out in order to pull people in, like from my PLN into something that would actually like help the school, was way back at the end of last year, I think it was, where we did like one of our teacher trainings, and I made a Padlet, and like I kind of put like, you know, if anyone has a tip for our new Microsoft educators, then like, you know, please put it on here. And like people from Holland started like putting stuff on, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, you know, our training's suddenly gone worldwide. Like, and it's so important to do that. I mean, like we've had collaborations now that have really positively benefited our students, which is essentially why we're all here. So yes, I wish I reached out in a more meaningful way more. And I'm looking forward to more meaningful reaching out.
That's really fantastic to hear. I found activities like that to be so helpful over the years. Using an open space, Padlet has been a go-to for me for many years for those sorts of activities. Although I've migrated over to using Jamboard more recently, given the limits of Padlet now. You can only have 3 on a free account, can't you? Paul, just to give you equal putting on the spotness, as it were, I'm going to ask you the exact same question that Neil asked. So what do you know now that you wish you did when you started this journey?
Okay, I really should have thought about this when Linda was out. I was too busy listening to Linda and her fantastic response she gave. What do you wish you knew now? I wish I knew more about how to make the most out of our digital ecosystem for staff wellbeing. I think it's something we've done really well over the last 6 months, and we've prioritised it. But we were very focused, as you would expect, on teaching and learning. But actually, we missed a trick. There were an awful lot of quick wins that we didn't achieve at the start, which we have done now, but we didn't do at the time. And I tell you, to be honest, the bulk of those ideas, come back to the conversation earlier, are from staff. Seeking. When we were all online last year, we asked staff at the end of every week how they were doing, but we also asked them if there was anything we could do to improve things. And do you have any ideas that would be good for you, and any ideas that would be good for the staff in general? And we used to share. Well, Linda used to share on Tuesday, a top tips Tuesday, top tips for the Tuesday. But part of that were wellbeing ideas too, and our staff have really become the content creators. Really, Linda mentioned before about that. The digital architects. We've got students too. To be honest with you, now we're at a point where we have a DIS Digital Dozen, which are like 12 kind of key things that we can use tech for, whether it's communication, collaboration, those kind of things. And we have like a kind of a hierarchy of skills. So like if you feel you're developing this is something new to you, say collaboration within the classroom, you can click these links, and they're tutorial videos from staff. They've come with their own ideas to Linda or myself, and I've put this together. 1 minute tutorial video on how to do a particular thing which would help your collaboration. In the middle is intermediate, and on the right hand side, I can't remember what we went for now. I know that I was keen to go for superstar because it sounded really, really kind of cheesy, but I can't remember whether I managed to twist your arm, although we went for something more sophisticated. But I think that and a lot of stuff. When we do ask staff for tips, they do come with wellbeing ideas, and I think that's quite telling really as well. With what the pandemic has done to staff workload and wellbeing. So I think a focus on wellbeing from the outset would have been advantageous if we'd have known how to do that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul. Just following on from that, if I could, seeing as you've collated, curated, and magpied these great wellbeing tips from your colleagues at DIS, have you got 1 or 2 that you could share that might be of interest or use to some of our viewers?
Definitely, like loads. Right, I'll go first, Linda, if that's okay, because there's one that I love. Okay, when you're in Teams, right, no matter where you are in Teams, if you press Control N, it starts a conversation with, say, if we want to chat to Linda, if I press Control N and just automatically type LAND and then enter, it starts a chat with her. So if you want to come out of a presentation or whatever, or Teams chat, anything at all, it's a really useful way to just kind of very, very quickly start a chat. So if you think, I need to send a message or whatnot, it's really, really useful. Second one, I would say, and I do appreciate that, I'm talking to teachers here, they probably know this, but just in case you don't, creating groups within the chats to entitle in those groups, and then pull in those groups. Say if I'm working on a collaborative document in Teams with, say, my head of secondary, and we're both working on it at the same time, well, I don't want to come out of that to go into the chat. So if you pull the chat out of Teams into a new window, again, really super simple, but very, very helpful. Last one for me before I pass on to Linda. Now I timetable in the school, so there's often things that someone said 6 months ago that I need to remember or kind of pull up like quickly, but it's a word or something like that. When you're in one of the chats within Teams, if you press, as long as your kind of cursor is selected in the text typing box, if you press Control F, and right, so today I was looking for a clash with a drama lesson and a history lesson that happened 5 months ago, and the reason why it happened was significant. The clash had been resolved, but I couldn't remember why it happened. So I was in with my head of drama, quick Control F, wrote the word history, and it brought up a history of the word history, and I was able to just select through. So again, like super like marginal gains here. You're talking small gains, but they add up. They do add up, and they save me a lot of time in my day to day.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Paul. You've jumped in there and sort of nicked one of my questions for later on there with the keyboard shortcuts, but that's all good. Thank you.
Should I do my favorite keyboard shortcut or my favorite wellbeing thing?
Well, and then we'll bring the keyboard shortcuts question to you later as well.
Amazing. Okay, then. So I think my one top tip for wellbeing, there are many, maybe I'll do two. Okay, is make sure. I'm going to do two. Okay, make sure that you create groups of your, like, instead of using, so if you're using Teams or you're using Google Chat or Meet Now, there's always a function to create like instant messages. So instead of like, you making a huge email stream, and this is like something that I guess, depending on the school that you're in, is really forgotten. But like, when you have to go back to email, it creates like this huge anxiety with the teachers sometimes, and like, also like it creates the anxiety with me because it's harder to track. It's what you just said, Paul, about like, being able to use all the shortcuts because you're used to using Teams or Google Classroom. So definitely like start making groups of people to chat because it's more informal. Like you get the job done quicker. You can share files with them. You don't get lost in an email thread. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to do another one. And it is kind of about kind of amalgamating like conversations that could be done in an easier way in one platform instead of using many. And it's basically, please, for all of your schools and for us as well, like into the future, stop just adding stuff and not taking anything away. Okay, and I think that's a really, really important thing to think about, every year when you do your digital audit and stuff, like in terms of long-term well-being. Don't just add stuff because you thought like, okay, like I've managed to like save kind of 30 hours of teacher time because now we're using OneNote and we're not flicking through books and stuff. That doesn't mean that you put 30 hours of that teacher time into something completely different. It means that teacher then has 30 hours of time, like, to plan their lessons and to make them even better. And that is going to make an extraordinary impact if you're really clear on it on teacher wellbeing.
Can I just jump on top of that just to say one thing? Email, we've chatted a fair bit about email, me and Linda. We love the conversation of email because we don't email anymore. And I got an email from my head of school at the start of the year. It was about something and nothing. But getting an email, I was like, oof, serious, because the culture has changed. I was getting probably, when I joined the school, I would say it was upwards of 200 emails a day, easily. The other day, I was, and this is last week, I had 8 in a day. Now that's probably the lowest I've had, but that for me is like, that's unthinkable. That is absolutely unthinkable. And it is so much better. It really is. It's so much better. And I would love to think that is across all areas of the school. I'm pretty confident it is. But yeah, sorry, no, we're passionate about email and a lack of it.
Me too. I mean, you mentioned in our conversation the other day about that session you came to at Jess. I shared about sort of digital health and stuff, and making sure that you schedule emails and don't do things out of hours and only use it when it's appropriate. Liz from British School of Netherlands asks a pertinent question for you both linked to this. Has your use of Teams replaced internal email or other communications, for example? Are you finding that? And has that been something you've done at like a sort of non-negotiable strategic level, or how are you sort of managing that?
It happened organically, to be honest. It did happen organically because now we have, we have our staff teams. We have the secondary school, huge staff team. We have digital skills, huge staff team, you know, where the teachers can all talk. But then we have like the much smaller teams of the departments. And then we have like a private chat. And actually, like, interestingly, you know, for us, we have our secondary school science department team where we do official talking. And then we have our chat, our private chat that's just up here. And we use it to kind of, well, give each other memes or whatever, like, you know, like throughout the day, just like, you know, say little things to each other, because of course at the moment, even though we're a big department, we don't often like see every single person like every single day. So it's important to have that line of communication. The only thing that I actually, honestly, as a daily teacher life is that I have on my emails now is if our director gives out a whole staff email, which is like a big kind of official one, or cover. So, yes.
Everyone's favourite email to receive the cover notice of a morning, isn't it?
But I don't know, going away anytime.
We've had a lovely comment here from Charles, sort of going back to what we were talking about a few moments ago, saying how he loves about bringing a group with you on the journey. And certainly Sabe is talking, and your comments, Linda, certainly resonated with me about when you're asking people to do more, making sure that you consider what you're going to take away before that to facilitate giving people more. I mean, that's a great message to share there as well. But I think the best sort of resonance sort of comment we've had so far is from, and I'm not sure who they are, frankly, but they're clearly a colleague of yours, because they've said Linda and Paul do an amazing job at our school, and I'm sure you'll be able to work out who that is from their name there.
Yes.
And you can for a more ringing endorsement than colleagues giving up their free time to come along and say nice things about what you're doing in your school. So kudos and congratulations to you there. We're getting close towards the end of our time this evening, but I want to jump to Ollie, who I know has got some more questions for you. So over to you, Ollie.
Yeah, just one that I think is massively important right now and resonates with a lot of things that you guys have discussed in terms of reducing teacher workload, identifying where students are within their learning. What is your favourite AFL tool and why? You can only have one each. Not that it's a competition. We'll jump to Paul first.
Okay. Right, I have a clear favourite. It's not a competition for me at all, and I use this completely for learning, not for assessment purposes. So, Socrative as a means to test students is incredibly annoying and hard work to set up if it's completely from scratch, but it is effective. It is incredibly effective. My year 10s and year 11s know exactly what I mean by this. So we give our kids we give them a test basically of 100 questions, and it is ridiculous. The other deputy head in the school is a historian, and she is teaching the history course with us, and we say it's unbelievably difficult, but that retrieval practice of going through it again and again and again and again, which you can do with Socrative. So basically you do the test, it's a low stakes quiz test, and then you can come back to it again and start again. Now the first time they do it, it takes them a good hour. The second time they do it, it takes them 55 minutes, but the score improves, and so on and so on. And in the end, what you end up having is they can rhyme this off like so quickly, because the forgetting curve is just becoming reduced and more reduced and more reduced to the point at which they just know it. Now, the whole debate in the UK at the minute around curriculum and the importance of fact and knowledge, and as a driver for skills and whatnot. This is it. So I find Socrative a great way to really use AFL to embed knowledge. So yeah, I'm a massive fan. I met Abdul Churhan, I know you guys know, and I know Linda knows, a few years ago when I was at Brighton, and I know that he's involved in that now through, I think, Shubi have bought up Socrative, and I just think that they have done a really smart job with that. It's really user friendly. It's simple. You can make it exactly what you want it to. And as I say, like the progress in my lessons this year and the back end of last year through the use of Socrative has been through the roof. It really has, and I know it is in a number of different departments in the school, particularly around the humanities and social sciences, and computer science who use it. We're not as lucky as core, who have these things like Educate and Century, and it's made for those things. But it is good to have, when you make it yourself, you can really personalize it. So yeah, an easy choice for me. Socrative wins all day.
No, I'm a huge fan too. I mean, just to give you an idea of how long one of the things that's great about Socrative as well is it's definitely tried and tested. I mean, it's in my book from 2013 as a case study to give you an idea of how long it's been around for. It is brilliant, and I love the fact that, unlike and Ollie will tell you, I'm a huge fan of quizzes, for example, and tools like that. What's great about Socrative is the ability to make it so that the students, because I think it's important when students are at a stage of pretty good mastery to get them to create some revision quizzes as well. And so rather than there being a big bank of quizzes they can just nick from somebody else in Socrative, the fact that they've got to actually go from scratch themselves and then use those quizzes to quiz their peers with as well, I think is a really nice sort of way of flipping things with learning. And so I really rate it for that reason as well. It's a huge thumbs up from me as a tool.
I think, Mark, the best way to get the kids to do that is to make a mistake in one of the questions that you write, and that way, like, oh, say you're rubbish at doing this. You know, can we do ourselves? We haven't corrected it yet. You know, so if you guys want to have a go, no problem. Okay, no, you know, talk less teaching, Isabella Wallace. Go on.
Absolutely, and the flip on that as well is when they make them, the first time one student ever gets one of their own questions wrong as well, no student will ever get that question themselves in the quiz that they definitely with you on that. Linda, what's yours?
I was thinking, like, this is not my one that I've chosen, okay, but I was just thinking, like, how amazing would it be actually if we made a Menti and put it onto like Twitter or something, like just to say, like, you know, what is your one favorite AFL tool, and just see which one gets the biggest, because I guarantee there's going to be a lot of people that say like the same things, but I also guarantee there's going to be so many of them, like, because there are so many of them. But the thing that I'm going to pick is the thing that I think is best for all of us, like not just the core scientists or like the mathematicians, or like, because you're right, Paul, like, go Team Science. But I'm going to pick Flipgrid, okay, because Flipgrid helps AFL students. It helps students like do AFL at whatever age, in whatever subject and whatever mode, like whatever specialism they're doing. So you can do AFL for practically anything on there, I would say, because I've seen it used so effectively in language for the starter activity, like just to retrieve, like, you know, key vocabulary, because it puts people on the spot, and because people don't like talking to themselves on camera. At the moment, I guarantee that you guys, you're not looking at yourselves, you're looking just to the left or just to the right, and Flipgrid kind of gives you, Flipgrid kind of gives you kind of like, sorry, I've got rabbits. Like, so a good example of me using it, because you instantly think of Flipgrid as something fun. It is fun, and you think of it for small people, but I use it for my IBs for biology. For learning about transcription and translation, some very heavy abstract DNA kind of ideas, but they're teaching each other and peer assessing each other. You can put rubrics on there. It can be fun because of the filters and stuff. And they are constantly doing the retrieval practice because they're constantly listening to each other. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you, Linda. Am I able to jump in with a final question, Ollie? One from our audience.
Yeah, let's do it. I have made a Menti, so perhaps we'll pop that.
Oh, well, we can pop that up afterwards. It'd be interesting to sort of see that as well, because on paper, the most popular AFL tool in the world for quizzing and the likes is by some considerable margin Kahoot. Excuse me, for a whole bunch of reasons. But I won't get into that right now because we're short on time. So we had a great question from Mataza. He asked, the UAE has a high attrition rate. How do you factor it into your change management strategy? Who'd like to have a go at answering that one, Linda or Paul?
Shall I start, Linda, and then I'll let you jump in. You can tag whenever you're ready.
Can I just say something really embarrassing, actually? You're going to make me sound really stupid. I don't actually know what attrition means. I'm so sorry.
That's absolutely fine. So it's asking you to think, really. There's a quite high turnover of staff in schools. And so how do you factor that in when you're thinking about your digital strategy is what I believe Mataza is asking there.
Okay.
So this comes a little bit back to what we were chatting about before when we were talking about content creators and those people that became the ambassadors within the school. What you've really got to do from day one is start your succession planning. And this is something that Linda and I talk about quite a bit. We're quite proud of the fact that if Linda and I disappeared off the face of the planet, and poofed into the air, the school will continue to run because it's not reliant on us. It's certainly, and I'll talk about myself, but it's certainly massively benefited by having Linda leading this at DAS. 100%. It's brilliant because of her. But we've set it up and she set up her digital architects in such a way that it's not reliant on us in order to do it. So those leaders in the school, the content creators that I talked about before, the people who are leading on the PD, those people are the next leaders in the school. And if not our school, then another school. They'll go and they'll lead this in different places. And I think the key to any good school is keeping your best staff. One of the things that we are doing as a school is we are becoming a professional development hub next year for Cambridge. So this is kind of hot off the press, really. It's not widely publicly known yet, but we want to make sure that for staff that are coming to DAS, there's a real opportunity for professional development. Sorry, Mark, I can see you clapping there. That's good. And can you hear us? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll just give you a round of applause.
Oh, good. Okay, sorry, misread that completely. So one thing we want to do is obviously we do have a high attrition rate in Dubai, but I think just trying to make it as an attractive place to work from a professional development point of view and from a wellbeing point of view, so we don't lose people to the city. If people are going home, fair enough, but then making sure that there's capacity within that team to drive it on further, and also to challenge me and Linda, because we certainly don't have all the ideas. We've got a lot of ideas. A lot of good ones and some not so good ones. So, having those people who are skilled up enough to come and say, look, there's a different way to do this. Over to you, Linda. Tag.
Okay, so having a high attrition rate has really worked in our favour in a way, because again, you're going back to change kind of growth mindset of change management, and kind of having people coming in at lots of different levels and lots of different with lots of different experiences really brings home to people that, like, if you're new, even if you're old, like in teaching, like even if you come from a school that has used kind of Microsoft before, you come from a Google school, or you come from an Apple school, they've realized very quickly that they can pick up that the skills are transferable as long as you apply them to teaching. And that's been seen like over and over again with people that have come in from Google schools and like Apple. Do we have many from Apple schools? Not many actually, but the kind of that kind of feeling is there. So have it as a positive, and don't be scared of that, because if you have like a new person coming in, they more than likely will know, they will know a lot more than they realize, and they'll be scared of coming in because it's a new environment. And what you need to do is make a training development program that highlights what they already know, because then they will then know how to elevate that and also how to share.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you for your comments there, both Paul and to Linda. I think Ollie might have had one of his moments that I had just before we went live, actually. I think he might have just crashed out there on his Wi-Fi. So I'm just going to drop him out, and he seems to be back. Are you there, Ollie?
I'm here. I'm still here, just about hanging in there. I have posted that Menti. It's up there. We've had 2 responses so far, and please do look for a tweet that's on there. I've tagged everyone that's watching or on Twitter that has made a comment. It'd be great to get a large cross section on that. You can see the link there as well. The voting code will need to go up next as well, Mr. Anderson, which is 643192, and
643192. So get your votes onto the Menti, and let's find out what the people's vote is on your favourite for learning tool. Look, we had more questions that we would have loved to have had time to dive into on the show this evening, but I think the quality of the answers and the engagement that you've both brought with you, plus from our many viewers on the show this evening, going to sort of testify how well received your work has been in the region and beyond, and your in-depth responses and answers as well show not only how great it has been for you and colleagues at Deira International School, but I think as well what's highlighted for me as well is your humility as leaders in this. You know, you're not looking to say, you know, I'm amazing, I've done this. You know, it's all about sharing what the whole school has done as part of a bigger journey. And what's lovely is how, you know, you're almost like a fan club for each other as well. So like Paul's like, well, what Linda's done amazing, like, is she's been able to do this, like, and then I can't do accents either. But fantastic to see you both interacting and engaging and sharing on the show tonight. So I'm sure Ollie will want to say similar words, but from me, a massive thank you to both of you for giving up your Monday evening to come and share. And it goes to what you said earlier on, I guess, Linda, about how you wish you'd maybe started sharing outwardly and you know, offering up advice and helping people and bringing people in for these sort of conversations far earlier. Well, long may this sort of sharing continue. And just to say, well, thank you very much to you both for joining us this evening. Thank you. Ollie, over to you, mate.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo that. Please do reach out to both Linda and Paul. I'm sure they're more than happy to continue the conversation off of the show. You can see their social handles just underneath their names just here. It's been really brilliant to just, you know, hear your excellent answers. Next week on the show, just a little interlude, we have the focus of creating a research-informed presentation for learning. So that's on the 8th of Feb. 2 weeks from today, the 15th of Feb, we welcome onto the show Dr. James Mannion and Kate McAllister, Rethinking Education. They've just released this book, Fear is the Mind Killer. So little interlude as to what's coming up in the next 2 weeks. Thank you for joining us, everybody. It's been an awesome show this evening, lots of learning. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.